Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Establish the Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer alongside Mike Gallagher, and we have a huge slate in front of us, 11 games, lots of injury information that's been changing during the course of the morning. Health and safety protocols is rearing its ugly head in the NBA once again. We saw that come up on Monday night with a surprise with Tobias Harris that was not on the injury report that kind of came out of nowhere. We're seeing it come up once again tonight. So, Mike, let's get right into it. We got a lot of stuff to go through.
Not going to ask me how I'm doing?
No, let's go. We don't even have time for it. I don't care how you're doing. I care about as long as you're not in the health and safety protocols, we're good.
Well, we got another protocol. Herb Jones is in the protocol now for concussions, but we'll talk about that. All right, let's go.
Yeah, so where do you want to start on the health and safety stuff? The latest thing we got was Jakob Poeltl being out for San Antonio, and then right before we came on the air, Doug McDermott is apparently available tonight. Poeltl's played a ton early in the season, so really replacing him is a tall task. They do have some backups that they can lean on here, but they're also without bigs like Zach Collins, who isn't ready to come back this year just yet. Devontae Cacok, who's on a two-way in the G League. So basically at the center position, they're down to like Eubanks and Thad Young, right? How do you expect this to shake out against the Mavs?
They might have old Jock Landale, which sounds like a made-up name. But, I think it makes a lot of sense to start that, especially against a team that they may want to switch on with Luka and kind of approach the defensively that way. Eubanks isn't a big minutes guy either. So Thad, whether he starts or not, should certainly be in the rotation with Eubanks expecting most of that split. I don't think that McDermott coming back is going to affect them much, but that could affect guys like Devin Vassell. Keita Bates-Diop would get a big decrease there. Keldon has a little bit more of a downside with McDermott in the mix too, so possibly limited. He has a lot of knee swelling over the weekend, so he may not be a full go. But yeah, I think that has a really nice upside. Pretty decent matchup. Mavs coming off the back-to-back, and Eubanks is also a pretty good upside guy. He's kind of a Poeltl-esque, blocker, good rebounder, round the basket scorer, and decent matchup against a Mavs team that's probably missing some front court guys. We'll see what's up with Kristaps.
Do you think from a matchup perspective they could get away with, now that they have McDermott available, get away with a few small ball center minutes like Keldon? Because really the key to figuring out the projection on Thad and Eubanks is not only figuring out which one is more likely to start. This is an 8:30 Eastern game. There's only one game after it, so we might not get the information. And Dallas is a team that will play Dwight Powell at center. They'll play Willie Cauley-Stein at center. They'll play, Porzingis when he's healthy, some minutes at center. I think they could steal some minutes if they wanted to with Keldon at center, essentially. And that would still allow them to play some of these wings that they've enjoyed playing more minutes in the absence of McDermott, I think, and would keep the overall minutes allocation on Thaddeus Young and Drew Eubanks down a little bit. Do you think they could go that route? And what do you think the range on small ball, like true small ball center minutes for San Antonio would be tonight?
I don't think they're going to need it. I think Thad and Eubanks should cover it. I mentioned maybe to get Jock Landale in the mix, but I'd say the high end would be like 7-8 minutes.
Okay.
I think Dallas will probably want to go, and that's on the high end. Like, I don't think there's be any.
Yeah.
So, maybe if Keita Bates-Diop was a small ball guy, maybe him. But
I was thinking
don't need him either.
I was thinking from a projection standpoint, I was thinking a good median for Eubanks and Thad combined might be 46 minutes instead of the full 48.
I would go over 45 for sure.
Yeah. I think just trying to figure out to bake in a little bit of risk here, because these are guys that are going to be good enough point per minute producers that they're both going to rate really, really well. And I'm trying to think through what are the scenarios that kind of undercuts them. We've seen this in the past with like Philadelphia when, Embiid was out and we thought it would be, Paul Reed as like the pure backup center, but then they end up playing some small ball minutes with Niang and different things. And the league is just moving in this direction where teams are more willing to play small ball and they're never going big. You're never going to see Thad and Eubanks on the floor together. So I'm just trying to think through what the range of outcomes is and if we should be a little bit more conservative than the full 48. With
I'd probably go full 48, honestly, but 46 definitely covers some ground. I just think Thad Young has kind of been staying ready according to Pop. I think they just throw him out there. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't give him,
Okay.
a normal amount of minutes.
Okay. Opposite that game you mentioned, Porzingis is questionable. Lower back tightness still the issue. What do you? Kleber's out still, but what are your expectations? Do you think we get Porzingis back tonight?
I kind of don't. Didn't sound like he was really close. Jason Kidd is kind of BSing us. Don't forget this time last week, he said it was fine. He's not even going through the pregame warmups. I haven't heard anything about details in practice. So, yeah, I would think he sits. We saw Jalen Brunson get the start in the last game against Miami. Kind of similar spot here without a lot of size on San Antonio 1 through 4. So I would think he starts again. Kidd really wants to play Frank Ntilikina. Ntilikina got his minutes trimmed hard in his first rotation and then got quite a bit of run in the second half. So definitely think they want to play him. Trey Burke off the protocols. I don't think it even matters, though, for him to be out there. So expect a lot of those, a lot of Luka Brunson. Brunson was killer yesterday, and he's been really one of the darlings of the start of the season, too.
Yeah. Really small tangent here. I'm sort of surprised Trey Burke still has kept his job, given some of the comments that Mark Cuban made coming into the season about unvaccinated players. And then also Trey Burke now has missed the testing and the protocols twice and has missed games because of it. For a player who might normally play like 3 to 5 minutes a game, I'm really surprised that he's kept his job so far.
Ntilikina should be cut today. We'll see. That's a story for another day.
Moving on to other big questionables on this injury report today. We've got Philadelphia with it's not even questionables with Philadelphia. It's just outs. Danny Green was additionally ruled out. We've got Tobias Harris out for health and safety protocols. And all of a sudden, Philadelphia gets much more thin on the wings as a whole. And we saw last game that Gorgeous Niang was really the big beneficiary. That was a game that Embiid was out along with Tobias Harris. It's a little different this time when Embiid is back. And you're still without Tobias Harris, but you get Danny Green. I think this helps more of the wings more than more than the fours, although Niang should benefit as well. But how do you see this rotation kind of shaking out tonight for Philadelphia, who goes up against, the red-hot Chicago Bulls?
Yeah, so I think the matchup is really important here. Matisse Thybulle makes a whole bunch of sense to start. You're going to need a really good wing defender against DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. Doc Rivers has liked to put Thybulle on LaVine lately. Yeah, actually, interestingly, per the matchup data, the person Thybulle guarded the most last year was Zach LaVine. So I'm fully expecting him to start. Maybe Yang at the 4. Maybe they go court again and go small. Doc seemed to really like going small. He called it crazy when he went with the Blazers. Just total small ball fest. A lot of Simons and 3-guard lineups against the Blazers on the other side. But, so I expect those guys to play. I definitely think Cork plays a bunch. Maybe Shake Milton. They're just don't miss. They're missing 60% of their main lineup from last year when you add Ben Simmons in the mix. So you have I was working on the minutes with Josh last night, and we were trying to get it to 10 guys, and we couldn't because Paul Reed's been a straight.
Yeah, I think we had a conversation about whether they play 10 versus 9. It's different when the 10th guy would be a third center. There's not a 10th guy that's a wing in this spot, so I think it's a little bit different. So I think they probably will play 9 tonight. I think Cork and Thybulle starting makes all the sense in the world. Cork started last game. Niang just played better. And then they also were able to play kind of different lineup combinations. I think they like Niang with Drummond a little bit more, whereas I think they want the shooting from Cork and Curry along with Embiid so that they can give Embiid space to operate down low a little bit more. I think Niang, they need a little bit more facilitating because Drummond isn't he doesn't command as much defensive attention as Embiid, so he doesn't cave the inside of the floor down as much as Embiid does. And I think we'll see the shooting start with Thybulle out there along with Embiid to help have the offense and know that you're basically playing a little bit of 4-on-5 on offense because Thybulle is very limited offensively. And then you have the primary wing defender. The Bulls are just going to hunt Seth Curry. That's the one thing that we'll have a hefty minutes projection on Seth Curry, but that's the one thing that's going to be tricky because with the switching and stuff, I imagine whoever Tybulle's on, the Bulls are just going to find whoever Seth is on and just hunt relentlessly. Seth or Maxey. I mean, they can only hide one on Lonzo. So yeah. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they choose to attack. But my guess is that Korkmaz and Tybal are the starters. Yang still plays meaningful minutes as a backup reserve, just because they're going to play a 9-man rotation tonight, is my guess. So I think there will be some value for Philadelphia once again, but not as clean as the other night when you were without Embiid and Tobias, and it's just boatloads of value.
Yeah, and just also the Bulls aren't really deep. They obviously have their big three, but they can get away with going 2 weaker perimeter defenders. Hopefully he can maybe hold his own against Lonzo or Javante or whatever they do, because Cork's a pretty bad defender as well. But yeah, they just have to. There's a lot of they can't really have it both ways. Another big questionable tag. I'm going to talk Atlanta first, just because we basically found out the other day that McMillan, he dropped a pretty big hint that he said with 6 games and 9 nights coming up that they rested Herter, and they are going to rest more people going forward.
Yeah.
So that means I was waiting to see what the injury report looked like, and John Collins gets the questionable tag. So that tells me they're probably resting him tonight. They're probably resting Trey tomorrow, somebody else after that. So, I mean, that's interesting. And the matchup against the Nets, I would think that they start Hunter, put him on KD, and then I would probably put Reddish out there, put him on Harden, and go that way. They really like Gallo in the second unit, fill minutes as a combo 4-5 man as well. So I think it makes a lot of sense for Hunter to play a bunch. Reddish has been shooting the ball a lot. Decent matchup for him too. So what are you looking at here from anything else?
Atlanta's a super deep team. They have really big aspirations this year that are beyond the regular season. So I think it's definitely a point where you can see them rest Collins and maybe on the front end of a back-to-back, maybe consider resting more guys tomorrow. I do think it makes more sense to play kind of lankier wings and try to match up with Brooklyn that way. And so I think Reddish makes the most sense for sure. Gallinari would make more sense in that second unit where you're going to match up with Brooklyn's second unit, older, less athletic dudes as well. So I think that makes all the sense in the world. The other thing that they could do is they could just slide Herter into the starting lineup because they're very comfortable with Herter. I think it's a question of what do they value more, Reddish's second unit scoring punch or Herter's kind of second unit ability to facilitate and run the offense. And I think they prefer Reddish's second unit scoring punch to stay. So I think it might be Herter and have him just chase around Joe Harris basically. But I can see it going either way. And the other thing is if they start Reddish, I think it's more likely that Lou Williams plays decent minutes in the second unit because I think they'd want that shot creation from Lou in the second unit instead of Reddish. So those are all things to consider there. They're a very deep team. They can play lots of different ways. The matchup with Brooklyn is okay. Do you think Collins, if he were to miss, do you think that increases the minutes ceiling for Clint Capella tonight?
I don't. Maybe ever so slightly, and they're actually maybe a little bit just because they're probably going to rest him tomorrow. I don't think Capella plays both these games. So what do we have in that? I think I would take a little bit off his total top just because the back-to-back factor.
Yeah, I cannot have our projections in front of me because the will slow down the tab, so I don't have it right off the tip of my tongue. But
I would take probably 1 or 2 off the top from what we usually do.
It's obviously Brooklyn's a team that struggles rebounding a lot, and it's a very good matchup for Capella, and his price has been down because he's performed poorly early in the season. So we'll talk about more on the DFS show with that specifics, but I think they're comfortable with Gorgui Dieng as, and I think it really just comes down to how they feel about Capella's health, and the front end of a back-to-back is a concern because if they're trying to get him through both games, they probably manage it a little bit. If they're definitely sitting him tomorrow, if they know that ahead of time, which we would not know ahead of time, they might be willing to let the leash go a minute or two, but I'm not sure the upside is more substantial than the downside in that situation.
Yeah. I just wanted to add really quick since you mentioned it. I think I got a pretty good feel for the Nets rotation now with the way they're starting, and Nash seems to really like that second unit of Javon Carter, Patty Mills, DeAndre Bembry, will be Paul Millsap coming back on the Marcus Aldridge. So I think it took us so long to get a grasp on this rotation, but I think I'm starting to feel pretty good about it.
I still think there's going to be a lot of matchup-oriented stuff going on with them that's still going to make the floor on these backup guys really frustrating to deal with on any given night. So I I think you're right, but I still will preach caution. Just there's too many
Yeah.
guys. They have too many guys, and each night there's the potential for Nash to see something that he doesn't like, and all of a sudden James Johnson is playing 8 minutes. So I will still preach a lot of caution with Brooklyn. Let's go over to
And Nick Claxton's not playing, so it's easy to see
Right.
that now, where Bruce Brown could be hokey pokey on that. Go ahead, sorry.
Let's go to Indiana, where Malcolm Brogdon is questionable once again. We saw TJ McConnell have the type of performance that we've typically seen from TJ McConnell when Brogdon's been out in the past. Really big performance. They dominated San Antonio from the get-go. McConnell didn't even need full minutes to put up a big fantasy line. What are your expectations on Brogdon tonight, and what do you think the minutes situation for Karis LeVert is now as he continues to ramp up?
Yeah, so hammy pull on Brogdon said he's going to play. Hammy pulls are almost never full go, so definitely not going to see that, drive every time, bananas, Malcolm Brogdon role we've seen. So I would be careful on playing him. Pretty clear that the LeVert, Sabonis, and Brogdon minutes together last year kind of capped each other a little bit. So not the biggest upside, not the greatest matchup. I'm probably avoiding all those guys. Obviously, TJ McConnell kind of comes off the board. Chris Duarte still going to probably get a good amount of it, but definitely expecting the big usage and ball handling hit coming to him. Definitely see Torrey Craig dip down. Jeremy Lamb's still out, so he'll still be in the rotation, but not a big enough role we're going to want to target him. But they've got a lot of depth now. So they probably play O'Shea Brissett as more of a 4-man to mix in. And Rick Carlisle admitted, we're a big team. That's the way it's going to go. So we saw that game where some guys kind of go in and out with Miles Turner's minutes, but I think Carlisle's warming up to playing Miles Turner if fouls aren't an issue a little bit more consistently.
Yeah. Let's go to New Orleans, where Brandon Ingram missed last game. Devontae Graham was on the injury report. Now you've got Herb Jones in concussion protocol. It's a tricky situation with New Orleans here. They're on the second night of a back-to-back, obviously, as well. So in terms of injury reporting information, we might not get much kind of leading up to this game. What are your expectations for how New Orleans approaches things tonight?
From what I gather, Ingram's not close. It didn't sound like he had any chance of playing yesterday. He was still sore on Monday with no return date in sight. I'm not saying no timetable, but it didn't sound like they were planning to have him for this back-to-back here. So, yikes. Nah didn't close last night. They closed with Trey Murphy over him as Nah was cold again. Mikal Bridges will do that to a lot of players. But, they're going to need offense, man. I mean, we just see Valanciunas go bananas. They're going to throw it to him every game. You would think, okay, it's Rashawn Holmes. These are two of, the bottom 4 teams in giving up putback points to opposing front court guys. So, JV is in a total smash, even though I love Rashawn Holmes. Besides that, we'll see what's up with Tay Graham, man. I mean, groin soreness back-to-back. This is concerning for a team that's really bad. I mean, they're pretty much tanking already, it feels like.
Yeah.
So Kyra Lewis was terrible yesterday. He had the ball in his hands. He was aggressive, just played like crap. So he could be looking at a pretty big role if something does come up with Devontae Graham too.
Yeah, I think obviously if you saw Devontae Graham and Ingram out, there would be a lot of value here just because that would be a lot of minutes and a lot of usage to replace. Do you think they're vulnerable to a blowout type situation as well, just playing on the second night of back-to-back? They played well last night. Tough loss to Phoenix. Phoenix ended up coming back and I think ended up even covering with a barrage in the fourth quarter there. Opposite New Orleans in this game is Sacramento. You mentioned Rashawn Holmes. Possibly a questionable situation with Rashawn Holmes. What's the news there?
Yeah, so just had some contact on the basket. Was in kind of agonizing pain. That's when your knee gets hit, it hurts, but you're not. We've seen it with so many guys, Jokic, AD. These knee injuries. Look, oh my God, they're out for the season, but they're okay. So that's what happened. Maybe some swelling, back to back. Got to keep an eye on it. They did have enough depth there with Alex Len and Tristan Thompson. And man, they went tight last night. 7 guys over 30 minutes. So this Kings team, man, they are ripe for fantasy picking if you can play it right. Who has a big game with this tight rotation? So Luke Walton, hey, remember that quote, man? Luke Walton says ideally he wants to go 8-man, 8.5.
Yeah,
he wasn't lying, dude.
He played very tight rotations deep into the regular season last year when they made a little bit of a run. And I think he wants to do that. I think it's very difficult to do that during the course of an NBA season because guys just wear down, as you can see. But I think this is an interesting kind of spot for Sacramento. We were on the Sacramento New Orleans game last week, and it just really underperformed from an offensive environment perspective. It wouldn't surprise me to see the same thing after two teams played, on the front end of a back-to-back last night and coming in tonight. It could be sloppy. So just a note, it's the last game on the slate alongside Charlotte and Golden State. Those
two late games are fun.
There might be some swap opportunities there if Holmes does land on the injury report, but we probably won't even know that until, I would guess, 5:30, 6:30 Eastern, something like that, would just be my guess. In terms of players that have been ruled out this morning, we talked about Danny Green, we talked about Jakob Poeltl. In addition, there's also Davis Bertans and Lauri Markkanen. I think Markkanen is the most interesting from a DFS perspective. Obviously, without Markkanen and Kevin Love, both in health and safety protocols now, the Cavs are a team that we've talked about has no depth. And we talked about this during the course of the win totals podcast and the preseason and different things that, like, if things started out poorly for Cleveland, they could really, really dovetail into a bad spot. Now, without Markkanen, without Kevin Love, we've seen Evan Mobley play like upwards of 38, 40 regulation minutes. Could this be another spot where just Mobley is just playing an absolute ton?
Yep. Definitely. I think they're going to want to play him a bunch. I like the matchup for him too. Against Portland, who's been, he's going to have an undersized guy in him. We've seen him kind of go off against small power forwards. So, don't expect him to get any. I mean, he basically has like kind of no backup. Like, they're going to have Dean Wade probably fill in the backup center power forward minutes, slide up Jetty as a straight 3-man, play a little bit of Lamar Stevens behind him. The guards are going to get a ton of minutes. Kevin Pangos is off the injury report, but I don't think it matters anyways. Maybe we see some Dylan Windler mixed in there. Not that you would lean on him, but Jetty, man, and the Blazers, they give up a ton of spot-up possessions. They're giving up the most spot-up possessions in the league. Lots of wide-open three-point attempts. So Cavs are going to get a lot of really cool looks from three in this matchup. So it's a really sneaky spot for Jetty Osman here, especially if they somehow don't start him. But I would assume they kind of have to.
No, I think they have to. I mean, you look at the situation. They're still down a Coro, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I'd say they have only 7 guys that they're even comfortable playing. Garland, Rubio, Sexton would be the 3 guards. Osman would be the only wing that I think they're comfortable playing. And then the only bigs that they'd be comfortable playing are Mobley and Jared Allen. So I guess that's 6. That's not even 7. And then I would say that, they're going to find minutes for like Windler, Valentine, Wade, just because they have to, and Stevens, just because they have to. But I think this is a team that you could see like that type of Sacramento rotation that we saw last night. Like, you could see that from Cleveland tonight in a matchup against a Portland team that has played very fast and struggled defensively early in the season. So this is a spot where I think the Lauri Markkanen injury is a good one to be able to take advantage of and try to attack in DFS, because I think you could see really, really tight minutes and rotations from Cleveland tonight.
Yeah, Portland's going to want to run on them, man. The Cavs are giving up the most transition possessions in the NBA. When a team's short, you run on them. So Portland has a pretty good chance to put up numbers. Come on, Dame, let's go.
Lots of talk about shooting down around the league. Paul George's comments on the ball yesterday. So it'll be interesting to see if these guys who've been off to really slow starts kind of find their form and find their comfort. Dame certainly at the top of the list on that with his shooting woes early in the season. In terms of other players that are questionable on the injury report, let's note Davis Bertans really quickly on the outside, just because Washington, Hachimura is like returning to the team, but he's not ready to play, right?
Nope.
So they are not particularly deep at the 4 spot. So Kuzma probably plays a lot. Denny Avdija and Corey Kispert probably pick up some minutes in smaller-ish lineups. I don't think it's a huge impact from a DFS perspective, because Bertans is only projecting for like 18 to 20 minutes a night. But those 18 to 20 minutes a night do get spread around a little bit. And I think in general, it just raises the ceiling on a guy like Kuzma, who could get up to like 36, 37, 38 in these matchups now without Bertans.
Yeah, really like Kuzma. We saw that the Raptors are comfortable putting Steve Mikhailuk on power forwards, but guarding a lot of Julius Randle. So, yeah, really into Kuzma today. With Beal getting a lot of blitz, a lot of traps that he'll be facing against a Toronto defense that's going to want to pressure him, and Spencer Dinwiddie on the perimeter. So, the old path of least resistance for Kuzma, really like him today.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the small questionable tags on the slate. They're actually, like, we talked through all the big ones with Brogdon, Collins, Porzingis, and then the Pels Kings game, which we'll find out more later because those teams are on back-to-backs. But some small ones that kind of might tweak rotations around. Pat Beverly is questionable, and obviously without D'Angelo Russell from Minnesota, if he were to miss, if Pat Bev were to miss, they would be really thin in the backcourt. You'd see Jordan McLaughlin play a ton. In that scenario, you'd see Anthony Edwards ball handle a ton whenever McLaughlin's off the floor. I imagine they would be staggered, so Anthony Edwards would basically play point. You'd see the minutes pick up from Malik Beasley as well, who played really well last season and hasn't been able to find his shots or his rhythm as much this season with everybody healthy there. But there's a lot of opportunity here for Minnesota against a Clippers team that would like to play small, certainly. So how do you think Beverly's going to play? And if he wasn't able to play, do you think it would make your boy McLaughlin kind of like a lock?
I think he's going to play. Full practice yesterday. Patrick Beverly revenge game against a team that led him to get traded multiple times. I mean, this dude does not want to miss this game. So, yeah, I would be pretty surprised if he doesn't play. So that gives him enough depth. This coaching staff loves Jordan McLaughlin. No reason to think he can't fill minutes. They're going to be able to fill up the point guard minutes with those two guys for sure. They did go Ant Edwards at the 0.1 for a hot minute in the second half after D'Lo got hurt in the last game, so that's on the table. They got Jalen Noel. They got plenty of backcourt depth, even if Beverly doesn't go. So I don't think they're going to need to trickle down and put Okogie at the 2 and run things that way to open up minutes for Vanderbilt. They've got enough depth where they're going to need it without D'Lo. But yeah, Cat crushes without D'Lo. We've seen Ant Edwards also has some good early performances without D'Lo, 79-minute sample. But yeah, definitely think. It just matchups wise. We'll talk more about this, but the Clippers are going to blitz the crap out of Edwards in this game. So it really strikes me as Finch saying he wants to get the ball to Cat. This seems like just, oh my God, feed Cat. Like that seems like this kind of game to me.
Yeah. Other small questionables, I don't think these impact things at all, really. The Knicks have Taj and Nerlens, both questionable. I think if they were both unable to go, it would impact things a little bit. But they also threw Jericho Sims out there last game for a second half rotation when Tibbs was very frustrated with the defensive effort that he was getting from his bigs. So I don't think that one's going to move the needle. I think we'll get at least one of those guys available. But certainly if they were both unavailable, that would improve Mitch Robinson's ceiling. And then Gary Harris is questionable as well. But he doesn't make much of an impact on the DFS side of things. I think Orlando is able to play really tight rotations when they're in competitive games. We've seen that, with Cole Anthony and Franz Wagner and Wendell Carter Jr. and Bamba getting their minutes up there. But I think they have enough depth that if Harris is out, like it doesn't move the needle a ton, I don't think.
Yeah. Total Spider-Man meme front court, right? Wendell Carter Jr. got the Al Horford comps, Bamba, Time Lord, some similarities on defense. So I'm excited for that. Bad defense for a lot of upside here in this game. I will talk more about it, but Magic have the worst defense in the NBA. Boston styling everything. So yeah, it's going to be a fun one to break down a little bit more later.
Yeah, and we will get to all of this later, all the DFS implications. On the 5:00 Eastern Time premium show Behind the Paywall with myself and Mike Gallagher. If you are not subscribed to Established Run's in-season packages for DFS, you are missing out on a lot of good nuggets and good content on the show. If you are checking in with us each and every day here, Monday through Friday, we appreciate it. Hopefully we put you in a really good position last night by our prediction that DeAndre Ayton would not play. We had JaVale McGee. We had Ayton projected out all day. We had JaVale McGee as one of the top values on the slate. Hopefully you didn't need to late swap into these situations because you were prepared for them in advance. If you're enjoying the content that we're providing, please continue to press the like button on these videos and subscribe to the Established Run NBA YouTube channel. That'll get you all the notifications you need whenever we go live. Hint, it's Monday through Friday at 2:00 Eastern each and every day. There's your first notification. But if you subscribe, you'll get all those lovely notifications as well when we are going live. Appreciate all the support. We'll be back again at 5:00 Eastern Behind the Paywall. And we'll see you guys tomorrow at 2:00 Eastern for another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show.